All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Barcode Collective podcast, where I'm going to really do my best to get some regular episodes out here consistently, because as we know, consistency is key. And without that shit, why are we doing any of this? So today's episode is largely going to be intended as an update episode on all that I got going on, not only with the Barcode Collective, but with Spacebar Wellness, the Fitbar Superfood Cafe, and Lifted Botanical Bar. I apologize. I'm a little congested right now. Been battling a little bit of these things that have been going around. So I've been a little sidelined, but I'm getting some motivation back. So we're hopping on here and getting an episode in. Also want to apologize if you hear any background noise, specifically a gremlin snoring in the background. I got Bodie, the French bulldog, laying around here, and Pepper. She doesn't really snore, but she is a bowling ball. So you might hear her crashing into things in the background as well. So I apologize for that. But without further ado, let me update y'all with what we got going on. So in every episode, I tend to talk a little bit about the businesses that we got, and, you know, being in the health and wellness field and the struggles with COVID, and a lot of the interactions on the episodes have been from other entrepreneurs also in the health and wellness space, talking about their challenges, not only with COVID, but just in entrepreneurship in general. So I've shared quite a bit about the different struggles over the past couple of years. And now it's just, I guess, time for an update to kind of bring everything back to where we are now currently. So talking about the struggles for me personally when it came to the pandemic, the shutdown and all that, a lot of it had to do with me being over leveraged. So if you are, you know my background, I'm from Seattle. My brothers are from Seattle. Cynthia, our partner, Andrew's girlfriend, is also from Seattle. So all of like the foundation, the support when it comes to family and just like all hands on deck, a lot of it is rooted in Seattle for me. Granted, I do not want to discredit any of the dope ass people that have stuck it out with me over these past couple of years. Laura, my girlfriend, Alana, and even more recently, just some of the new crew members that have come on that have been all about this life as of lately. I can't thank them enough. You guys know who you are. I appreciate you. And with that being said, though, just not having, what I felt was like rock solid support in decision making and all of that had been a real challenge for me. And in regards to being over leveraged, I opened up several locations right before the shutdown, so we opened up a small juice bar in Sierra Madre, which was the Fit Bar. We obviously had our Sunset Beach location and that property down there in Orange County. And then Pasadena was just a huge project, right? A year of construction, a year of struggling to try to pay for construction. And then also a year of building out what we thought was going to be this new concept that was very needed in the industry. Again, Spacebar being a space to breathe, adapt, and recover. And then getting hit with the pandemic, right? And having all of those businesses up and running was very challenging because they all have posed their own challenges. They're all getting shut down. They all had different, employee issues and whatnot. And having to just overcome a lot of that stuff. So with that being said, I made it through the entire pandemic with all of those businesses intact. I often say that was a very emotional decision, that I was just grinding it out emotionally and not making like the best rational business decision at that point. Like I wanted to prove that I had enough grit to kind of make it through it. And also just because, when you're in a place of fear and scarcity, you default back to kind of your most deeply rooted characteristics or traits, I guess. And that's what I've always had to go back on. It's just like being relentlessly stubborn, I guess, when it comes to just showing up and trying to get shit done, even though sometimes it's not actually doing anything. It feels like, at least. But anyways, we made it through, right? And it was a challenge the entire time, both emotionally, physically, all of the above. So once, started seeing a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel with maybe things opening up a little bit more, I really started to try to make conscious decisions on how not to recreate the problem that I had just found myself in. Granted, I don't really foresee another shutdown coming like we experienced over the past 2 years. I mean, I don't think these pandemics or these viruses are necessarily going anywhere, but I don't think we're going to be able to have these shutdowns like we did. So in case we do, though, I sure as hell am not trying to be in the same position. And therefore, I've been really working on trying to let some things go and trying to lighten my load. Again, kind of being the sole person down here in California without having multiple people to help out with these different locations. And, you might be saying, oh, well, why don't you hire in order to operate these spaces and use employees to do that? Start leveraging employees so that you're not so over leveraged. Easier said than done, especially when you don't have the resources and like deep pockets to pay people what it really takes. I know it's a catch-22, we can talk about that and, you can have your thoughts and opinions. But again, no one's living my life, right? And dealing with the things that I'm dealing with. So this is what it is for me, right? So it's like, I just don't want to go down that road. And I honestly don't want to deal with a ton of employees that have kind of a come and go mindset. And yeah, I just don't want to deal with that, right? So trying to lighten the load, and what that has looked like for me is actually one of the biggest things is selling the property down in Sunset Beach. And although it was a pretty historical commercial property on Pacific Coast Highway, just 100 feet from the sand, very recognizable. It just was causing more problems than it was solving. So in regards to owning this commercial property, there's like property tax was like $16,000 a year. So that's an extra expense that, we just weren't cash flowing enough from operating the Fit Bar in that location. And it was just a challenge, right? To hit those numbers, in 1,000 square foot space, rent essentially, or the mortgage was going to be about $7,000, $8,000 a month. And to try to cover those numbers with the Fit Bar was going to be a huge challenge. So ultimately, lightening my load was the goal, right? So we can get a little stronger foundation and a little more clarity on the direction that I want to go. Decided to sell the property. So we did that. Very quick close, actually, which kind of came unexpected because the plan was to kind of list the property and see what kind of bites we were going to get, what the market was calling for, I guess. And real quickly, we got a pretty significant cash offer with like a 10-day close. So felt like, although a very, very hard decision to make because I was very emotionally bought in on that property and what it could potentially produce over the span of 10, 15, 20 years. I knew for myself in the current situation was going to be so much better to accept this offer. And it was a challenge. And honestly, one of the challenges associated with accepting this offer was closing the Fit Bar and having to tell the crew members that Fit Bar is no longer going to be there, and having to, basically tell them that they have to find, another job. And I had this moment of kind of reflection because, and the particular employee that I was thinking about during this was one of our newest employees. Like she had only been there for, a few weeks, honestly, but she had like unmatched work ethic and she's amazing and she holds down the fort completely now. Since we're still operating out of that property right now, as minor details. Fuck it, I'll tell you. So one of the biggest challenges with accepting this offer was knowing that I was going to have to tell the employees that, the Lifted Bar no longer exists. And, I remember thinking as I was going through this process of making this decision was how hard that was, right? To do that or to feel like I was letting everybody else down. And the employee that I was thinking about in particular was a pretty much a new hire. She'd only been with us maybe a month or a few weeks, but she was rock solid and super dedicated and just kind of a different breed. And I knew that having her on board would really I could keep the business probably and rock with her and make it happen. But again, these are all what ifs, and I wanted to get away from the what ifs and the entrepreneurial optimism that I've always had. I wanted to be very rational and just like make a good decision, and accepting this offer for myself to lighten my load was just what needed to happen, right? So made the decision, feel really good about it. We ended up doing a 3-month lease back. So although it was a 10-day close, decided to do a 3-month lease back so that we didn't have to, essentially let everyone go in 10 days and figure out how to move all the equipment and do all of that in just 10 days. So we're still operating out of it. Got a couple weeks left down there in Sunset Beach, and then we'll be pulling out. And I will not be driving down to Orange County multiple times a week, spending, 2 hours in the car every couple days. And the amount of time I'll get back to focus on some other things is going to be crucial. So super stoked on that. And where that focus is going to go is going to be back towards Spacebar wellness, which has been a whole journey in and of itself. We talk about resilience and being mentally strong and leaning into discomforts. That place has really shined the light on all of that. And that's what we talk about there. That's why we create space to breathe, adapt, and recover. Mostly breathe, right? Breathe so that we can create space, so that we can respond, and so that we have moments to think things through. And I'm excited to say that, we're finally getting back to the original concept that Spacebar was. So our original goal with Spacebar Wellness was to create a recovery place where you could feel good about your days off. In the Western world and our mindset largely here in this capitalistic society that we live in here, it's always more. How can we get one more workout in? How can we diet harder? When the reality is finding balance and finding time to recover is super crucial for your results. Even if it is more of an aesthetic result of fat loss or building muscle, all that happens in the recovery phase. So we wanted to create a space where you can come get saunas, ice baths, Normatec, red light therapy, some mobility sessions in, cupping, scraping, essentially all of these recovery services that aren't just like really passive. They're proactive. Like you're going and you're still putting a little bit of stressors on your body, but intentionally, right? In order to promote a little hormesis and to create more blood flow so that you can, recover faster from the workouts and from life. So that was the intention. And more so than just the different modalities that I listed, what was really woven into the fabric of what the Spacebar was to be was this idea of coaching. Going all the way back to February of 2019, Every single person that would come into the Spacebar and sign up for anything, a sauna session or whatever it was, had a one-on-one assessment with one of the coaches, myself or the other coaches that were there at the time. And we would put people through a functional movement screen, hands-on breath assessment. We had a printed journal that kind of was a guide for people to tap into a little bit more intention, not only through their workouts, but their recovery and just things that they felt were important that they wanted to work on, and just giving them a way to kind of track that and tap into, a daily routine of accountability for themselves. So everybody was receiving that, and we were listening to what people's workout regimens were looking like and how best to implement the ice baths or the saunas with their workouts. If they weren't currently working out, we would obviously advocate for them to start working out, a couple of days of resistance training through either our personal training partners or the Anytime Fitness that's attached to us. We really wanted to get them moving. So, most of our coaches and trainers were all certified personal trainers as well. So, we were capable of writing programs for people to follow as well. So when the pandemic hit, obviously we had to pivot a little bit, and, we had to furlough a lot of employees. Some people bailed on us, which is fine. I'm not resentful. All right, a little bit. But we had to get away from a lot of the group stuff and the hands-on stuff that we initially wanted to do. And although we probably could have kept it going at some extent virtually during this time, the fact that we didn't have any employees or coaches that stuck on board to do that and see that through, just again, over leveraged, couldn't really do it. And this is again where it could have been different had I not overextended and done so much, because if that was the case and I just had Spacebar to deal with and I didn't have to drive to Sierra Madre and Southern California, then I could have strapped in and I could have put together this virtual program, and I could have really had Spacebar thriving over the past couple of years, I think, and obviously that's a slippery slope and kind of dangerous path to go down to start thinking that way. Because you can always play that game of what ifs, right? And that's what I'm trying to get away from 2 years down the road from now. And so that I'm not saying, oh, what if I accepted that offer in Sunset Beach? What if I let Sierra Madre go and had someone take over the lease? What could Spacebar have been then? And that's where I'm trying to live in a little bit more. So all the what ifs that could have happened over the 2 years, kind of not so important. What's more important is where we are now and what we're doing to stay ahead of things moving forward. So we're getting back to coaching, which I'm super excited for. And I'm also excited to play a role in that coaching. So largely the coaching that I've been more involved in over the past, I guess, 8 years or so would be on the nutrition side of it, helping people find balance within their nutrition choices and integrating it within their lifestyle. And, my approach has changed sometimes since I've evolved kind of in my own goals as well. Like I remember, when I was younger and a lot more interested in the physique side of things, my advice nutritionally was a little bit more out of balancing the lifestyle of partying and still maintaining a lean physique. So it's not that I push that narrative, but that's, where I often found the conversations happening. Now that I'm a little bit older and I have a lot more of a holistic approach, I've experienced a lot more things, not only through, thousands more customers that have come through our doors, but just me personally, in my own body and things kind of breaking down, and me trying to work out and eat a certain type based off of where I currently am, the context of my life right now. I've figured out all these different approaches, right? And And now we're integrating this within our coaching services to use recovery as a tool, to use nutrition, to use movement, and bring it all together. So this January, we launched a 6-week program to get back to this coaching service that we originally started with. So super stoked for that. Had 5 ladies jump into it, which is great. And what we really want to accomplish with this is to show people what wellness can actually be like in a balanced state, right? Everyone talks about balance and a holistic approach, but we have this unique opportunity at Spacebar to deliver all of that, whether that's through movement, obviously the recovery services, nutrition. We can do all that under one house, and we're excited to be able to show that. So for these 6 weeks, we are really advocating and promoting this group to get at least 2 days of strength training in, 1 hour of recovery, an outdoor workout. So we're also leading hikes on Sunday mornings, and then a little bit of nutrition guidance. Not too much emphasis in this round about the nutrition side of things or even really putting too much of a game plan around that. It's more of a conversation about where they are individually, and then giving some little tips on making subtle changes, because we don't want to overhaul everything at once. For us, we really want to start leading with the recovery side of it, and just really making sure that you're committing to an hour of this new service, I guess, this missing piece that has largely been left out of wellness programs or fitness programs, I should say. It's been a part of wellness for a long time, recovery. But as far as fitness goes and this lifestyle, recovery has not played as big of a role. So with this 6-week program, we really want to emphasize that, because we do really believe that if you dedicate an hour a week to proactive recovery, that your workouts are going to be that much better. You're going to feel so much better. And knowing that just 1 hour isn't going to be like all that you need, but it starts providing the structure and the mental framework to start valuing it a little bit more. It's kind of like this idea for me and breath work. So breath work is less about, at least me personally, is less about sitting down and spending 20 minutes every single day breathing. It's about maybe dedicating a couple minutes to breathing, but bringing conscious awareness to the breath throughout the day. That's where the real impact lies. That if you can start thinking about the breath as you're walking around, as you're driving, and maybe just go from mouth breathing to nasal breathing, the impact that breath work is going to have at that point is so much bigger than if you just sat down every single day for 20 minutes and focused on your breath and then went out into the world and never thought about breathing again. You know what I'm saying? So same idea with the recovery thing, that if you're just getting a little recovery in, at least starting out maybe 1 hour a week, you're going to start thinking about it in a different way. You're going to start emphasizing maybe more down regulation after your workouts. That doesn't have to happen at the Spacebar. It can happen at your gym. It can happen wherever, right? You're starting to think about how I can recover better. So 1 hour of recovery at the Spacebar might then lead to you having a better nighttime routine, because now the conversation of recovery is top of mind, and that sleep is crucial when it comes to recovery. So that might impact that. You might then start looking into what kind of supplements might help you sleep better, getting more magnesium, all of the typical tips that we hear to set ourselves up for good sleep hygiene, right? You're going to be thinking about recovery more. Same way that, with all the conversations around diet and nutrition, it leads people to constantly be thinking about food, for better or for worse. Either what foods they can't have or what foods they can, or it just makes you think about food all the time, because it's such a big part of our conversation and culture, that if we can just chip away a little bit obviously recovery and doing the things that we do at the Spacebar aren't going to take up as much of your thought process as food because you're eating multiple times a day. But you get what I'm saying. This is the logic that I'm thinking here. You come in 1 hour a week at the Spacebar, you're going to start thinking about recovery more, and your week ultimately is going to change a bit. That's my logic, at least. So stoked for the coaching. At the end of the 6-week program, we'll continue to do more. But I really want to start launching the individual coaching services. So getting back to an offer from the jump and letting people know that, we can completely customize a program for you. Again, complete customized workouts, recovery program, breath program. And, I look forward to people being willing to invest in us to see the impact that this could ultimately get them. And who this is ultimately for are for people who have invested in coaching in the past who haven't, right? But have been pushing and grinding and following the narrative that we've always been told, that we need to work harder. We need to do more. And, you're tired because you don't feel like you can do more. And if you were to do any more, it's going to take away from other things that you feel are super important, like your family, your business, just your overall quality of life, the things that we forget about that are really at the root of our happiness and our contentment. You know what I'm saying? That's who we're looking for, because at the end of the day, we don't believe that you have to be training 7 days a week, especially if your goal isn't to become some shredded ass bodybuilder, right? Or you're not competing at the CrossFit Games. It's about bringing more intention behind all that you're doing to match up with the goals that you're trying to get, and not listening to the path that somebody else is following to get to their goal, right? So I'm sure you've heard about, starting with the why, and, so do we. That's where we start with, but it's super important. You need to know exactly what it is that you want to accomplish, and then have a coach or a facility that has the ability to guide you in multiple modalities and these different pillars that are important to kind of help you find that. That's who I think our services are going to be perfect for. Right. And I say that because that's me, honestly. That's why the Spacebar was created, because I was broken. My body was jacked. My back was messed up to the point where I couldn't work out. And I was tired of feeling that way. And I wanted to find some way to move my fitness forward, move my aerobic conditioning forward, work on my mental health, work on my mental resiliency. And that's where ice baths started to come in. That's where I started getting familiar with breath work. That's when I started investing in breath coaching certifications to fix myself, right? And, I'm a big believer in once we discover something that is working for ourselves, that we have to share it. We have to introduce others to it. So that's when the Spacebar came to be. And we created kind of this whole concept around this idea that emphasizing recovery, knowing that that's when great majority of the progress is actually made, and doing this in a way that people don't feel lazy about. That was always been another big part of my narrative, is that, days off are for the weak. Taking time off are for pussies. You know what I mean? And that's just not true. So creating a space that you can come in and feel like you're actually putting in a little quote and unquote work while you recover through some discomfort of saunas, the discomfort of ice baths, just made a lot of sense, and it needed that accountability though behind it, because at the end of the day, we all know that we know the things that we need to do at this stage of the game. If you don't know how important recovery is, you've been either living under a rock, or you're just really in denial, right? So we know that recovery is so important. So I ask you, are you taking time to recover? What does that look like? Sitting on the couch? We know that's not recovery. You know that's not recovery. Recovery is getting more blood flow. I guess sometimes sitting on the couch is what's needed, but you know what I'm saying, right? We know that we need this, but yet are we doing this? as health and wellness professionals, we are the worst in making time for ourselves. So for you personal trainers and coaches out there, are you taking time to recover? I always have to ask myself that, because being the creator of this thing, right? My answer is no. No, I'm not. I'm still not making time to recover. And the reason why? Nobody's here to hold me accountable outside of myself. And I get it. We all need to hold ourselves accountable. I obviously can do that to a certain extent, just like you can to a certain extent. But there's a reason why you're not recovering if you're that person that's not. I'm talking to you. There's something else. There's these other roadblocks, right, that are preventing us from doing it. So I get it. I suffer from it as well. Having all these pieces of equipment at my disposal, I still find the excuses to not necessarily get in 3 times a week to the ice bath and the sauna, to do the red light therapy. I am constantly worrying and thinking about the next move to kind of keep the businesses moving forward, and all that's involved in that. And as I'm rambling about that, that is a bullshit excuse. And I guess that's what the Spacebar is here for, is to call us out on these excuses, and more importantly, the coaches at the Spacebar. That's what I intend for them to do, is to hold us accountable and hold me accountable. So yeah, I guess that's a little bit about the new coaching services that we're getting back to. One of the other big changes at Pasadena is going to be the rebranding of the Fit Bar Superfood Cafe. So the Fit Bar is our acai shop, smoothie bowls, plant-based protein smoothies, coffee. Health conscious coffee is what we call it, because we're not using a lot of sugars and whatnot. That's the Fit Bar. You guys have come to know and love the Fit Bar since 2015. And the goal for us at Pasadena was to create this social wellness. And we had this intention of people coming and grabbing smoothies and then hanging out in our little lobby area, going into the Spacebar and just congregating and hanging out. Obviously, the social aspect of things was taken away these past couple of years. And moving forward, and now that we're not necessarily out of this pandemic, but taking steps to be out of this, right? I felt that the Fit Bar wasn't going to be able to do what I had intended that space to do, which was be more social, have more people gathering and hanging out. And therefore, I pivoted again and made the choice to rebrand as Lifted Botanical Bar and move forward with a little bit of a different concept. So social wellness is the goal for us there. Getting people to congregate, hang out, have discussions around health and wellness, catch a vibe, if you will, and just be around other like-minded individuals. And in order to do so, I wanted to introduce Kava to the community. So if you're in the health and wellness space, maybe you've heard about it, maybe you haven't. As of the past couple months, a few big heavy hitters in the health and wellness space have had actually guests on their podcast talking about it. Both Ben Greenfield and Dave Asprey have both had episodes dedicated to Kava, which is awesome to see. Really great in spreading the awareness. But Kava, I guess I'll give you a little background on it. I first became familiar probably 5 or 6 years ago. It's a root from the South Pacific. It doesn't taste all that great, if I'm going to be honest with you. But to me, I do enjoy it. I guess I catch myself always leading with that because I don't want to fool people, be like, oh, this is some delicious drink. It's really not. It's a little bitter. You essentially take this root. Again, most of the farm is going to be in the South Pacific, like Vanuatu, Fiji, a little bit of Samoa, a little bit of Hawaii. But essentially this root you kind of grind up, and it's not something that you can steep. Like, you don't just put it in water and then drink it like as a tea. You have to really agitate the root. So you put it in like a cheesecloth, pour water in it, and then we just like squeeze it until the water comes out. And through that agitation of the roots, you pull off these kava lactones. So that's the active compound that is going to actually create some euphoric feelings when you're drinking it. So it's a very social beverage. It's been used in the South Pacific as the preferred social beverage. Typically, people will go out to work here in the US and then maybe go to happy hour afterwards. But so in Vanuatu, for example, there's a lot more kava bars than there are actual alcohol bars. It's used ceremonially, it's used recreationally, and it's been used for thousands of years. So these kava lactones, they actually activate your GABA receptors. So you get this like body relaxation. Your shoulders just kind of drop. You feel just more open. And it's pretty undeniable, actually. Like you drink, say, our recipe is potent enough that in 6 ounces, like you drink it and you feel this body buzz. It's almost like a clear-headed buzz, I guess, maybe like a 1 or 2 beers in where you just feel kind of happy, a little euphoric. But again, it's not alcohol. Like you don't feel any of the downsides that alcohol can produce, hangovers, bad decisions. There's no real health concerns with drinking kava either, right? So it's almost this magical route that allows you to open up and be social while still putting your health first and your health forward. Again, because we're all good with hanging out and being out and having a good old time, right? But if you got real shit to do and you got real goals to knock out and you got to work out in the morning, or you got to wake up and be present for your kids in the morning, or you got a business you're trying to create and you got shit to do in the morning, then you can't afford to be brain foggy and in that low-key depressed, hangry, hungover state in the morning, right? So this is why I think that this is going to be a great introduction to Pasadena and be the street-facing part of Spacebar, right? So we still do our plant-based protein smoothies. We still have all of our coffees. We've actually even added more adaptogens, more mushrooms to the lineup, so that you can come hang out, have conversations, connect with people, all in a space that promotes health and wellness. And we need more of those spaces. So why not be a part of creating it? So during this transition of shifting over to Lifted, again, resources have been pretty tight. So doing this on a shoestring budget, just making very little changes. One of the biggest changes also in doing this was to try to limit the amount of staffing that we needed in order to operate the front bar. So the Fit Bar was very labor intensive from the standpoint that we hand blended every acai bowl, right? So there always essentially had to be 2 employees on staff in order to blend these acai bowls. So by taking that off, we can really operate the front essentially with a 1-man crew for the most part, which has been a game changer. And then as we grow, we can add, another employee up there to really stay ahead of the experience. So that was a big change. And now the goal for Lifted, honestly, is, again, to create this social wellness, to create tonics that will help people take the edge off, become more social, want to hang out without compromising their health goals, right? So Kava at the root of it. We have different mixed drinks that we use in order to soften the flavor and make it a little more palatable. So we have like a mushroom mocha that we have Kava, a pina colada. We can make them look and feel and taste like lattes. I still prefer the traditional route. So if you do stop in or you do go to any Kava bar, try to get the traditional Kava if it is a Kava bar that actually makes the traditional Kava. You're going to get a lot less sugar. Again, what I hope doesn't happen as Kava becomes more known, that people take what this healthy beverage is and just water it down to make it more palatable. In by meaning that, I mean like loading sugar in all of these drinks, and I just really don't want to see that, right? So I'm hoping this traditional Kava that we make becomes the norm and not the alternative, where step one of Fit Bar transitioning over to Lifted, introducing Kava, trying to create a little awareness around that. Step 2 is going to be probably bringing in some different herbs, almost like maybe an apothecary setup where we have a bunch of different containers of bulk products, so the lion's mane that we use in our drinks, for our mushroom coffees and whatnot, you can buy because we have in bulk, chaga, reishi, all the go-tos, as well as other different herbs. Again, I'm not an herbalist, so I haven't taken that step yet to go down that path. I'm looking for, a team that can help with that, right? So I'm looking for herbalists that are willing to come in and grow that side of the business, so that we have multiple revenue streams outside of just what's happening at the bar. We can help support our community by educating them on how to make different tonics and different drinks at home that can either be used medicinally or just proactively for health purposes. So that's one step. Another step in this idea of social wellness and getting people to hang out is to bring in some of these non-alcoholic beverages that are really hitting the market right now. So whether it's through sparkling drinks, or more importantly, like I've been seeing a lot of these, say, botanical whiskeys or tequilas or these other drinks that are made with botanics and different plants and different herbs to kind of create these flavors and these tastes. So developing a menu that is a lot more familiar to the bar goer, maybe a Moscow Mule using, I haven't drank in a while, but I think Moscow Mule might be vodka based, right? So using a plant or a botanical vodka that doesn't have any alcohol in it, and then putting in some of the kava so that you do get this sensation of euphoric openness, right? And body relaxation so that you can have this night out that might be familiar to you if you are used to going to bars, but don't want to go to bars anymore, if that makes sense. That's what I really want to do. So a couple different phases of Lifted. That's the direction I want to take it. And then also with, I guess, that same thought process that if we're using and we're sourcing these different non-alcoholic spirits and these mixers or whatnot to create a non-alcoholic bottle shop there as well. So if we're using this botanical gin and you like it, buy it off the shelf and go home and make our recipes. You know what I mean? Having that open as a retail marketplace for us as well. So a couple different phases there, really excited about it. The challenges with that are what I often find is that there's just not too much awareness around it. We get caught up in our bubbles, right? So we feel like everybody knows about ice baths. Everybody knows about saunas. And if you're listening to this podcast, you probably are pretty familiar with a lot of these modalities, but the great majority of people aren't. And as a brick and mortar location, you have to just kind of think about that where, all right, say 5% of people know about ice baths, or in this case, 0.2% of people know about Kava. If you are working on a global scale because you have an online business, you can target those people, and that 0.2% or that 1% of the population globally or even nationally is going to be plenty to crush it on, right? And that's where the idea of like niching down really, really is beneficial. But as a local space, you have to then kind of use that same math where it's like, okay, there's 1% of the people that know about this thing. I'm in a particular area. How far are people willing to drive to come to this Kava bar? So that's the challenge that I'm against right now, is like creating awareness to what Kava is, getting people to taste it, to experience it, and see how impactful this can be to their life and making lifestyle changes that they've been wanting to make for so long. Like, we don't think that these things are integrated, but they are. Like, imagine you've been frustrated with your body, right? Like, you've been wanting to lose 20 pounds for 10 years and you haven't done so. It's because you haven't shifted, your environment, and a big part of the environment is what we do socially. And, I'm not asking or advising for anybody to walk away from their friend groups or their friends or whatever it might be. But if you really have a goal, you need to kind of start looking at all these different areas that are preventing you from reaching those goals. I'm not saying that drinking is at the root cause of you not getting to achieve your goals. I'm just shining the light on that for me, and because I have the opportunity to create an alternative. So all I'm saying is that if you are potentially frustrated with not seeing results and you're not too stoked after a night of drinking, and you are open for an alternative, one that's rooted in natural medicinal beverage that can induce a feeling of euphoria, relaxation, and prime you for a social experience, then the Kava bar at Lifted Botanical Bar could be the solution for you. And that's all I'm trying to do, is paint a picture of an alternative for you, because it's been a great alternative for me. As you know, I haven't drank for 3 years, and I don't intend to drink anytime soon, especially when I am finding other substances that are allowing me to alter my state in a way that's more beneficial for me in the long run, whether that's through psilocybin, kava, cannabis. Those plants personally have had a way more positive impact than alcohol ever has on me. And no judgment there, like if you can drink and still be social in a way that you're proud of and, get all your shit done, then, go for it. But I think it's time that we stop pretending like it's healthy. You know what I mean? Like it's a great choice. I get the social aspect of it is crucial. And that's exactly, I guess, what I'm coming to, is that it's the social aspect of these things that are so important, that if we have any things that are preventing us from being social, like our personality, like say we're introverted, or we need a beer or a drink in order to go and socialize, then I would suggest a little bit more work on getting to the root of that. We all trying to do our best out here, and that's just my suggestion, to seek out some of these things that might be more beneficial. And this doesn't come from a place like, oh, listen to this guy who's opening up a kava bar and now trying to push kava on me. No, these are things that I've used, and these are things that I've used and have found a lot of success in, to the point where I'm willing to risk my ass. So this isn't coming from somebody who, oh, look at this guy, he's freaking opening a kava bar and now he wants to change everybody to drink kava instead of alcohol. That's not where it's coming from. I mean, these are things that I've used and have had a huge impact on my life. And again, it's been a belief of mine that when I find something that is working for me, that it's my duty to share it. And I'm willing to risk my ass in doing so. And, spend a lot of time in developing certain things and hours at a particular place trying to create awareness and educate people on the benefits. That's what I'm doing. And if I can create a successful business that impacts my community in a positive way, hell yeah, I'm gonna probably try to get you to experience Kava. One, because I think it's going to be a great alternative for you. Two, because we're trying to create wellness in a social aspect again. And three, because I believe in creating shit that isn't really out there. There are kava bars out there, but I don't agree with a lot of the way that they operate, right? So it's like, if I don't agree with it, I'm not going to sit by passively and do nothing about it. I'm going to create what I believe to be a better solution. So that's the early phase of Lifted Botanical Bar. If you're interested in learning more, I would love to talk to you. If this is something that you potentially would be interested in investing in, definitely interested in finding some partners as well. Obviously in Pasadena, California, Los Angeles area. I don't think this is going to be something that would be popping up all over the place, again, until awareness gets built around Kava in Los Angeles. I think, focusing in on one location and really dialing it in, creating the experience is going to be crucial. That means events, live DJs, live music, different game nights, a lot of those things. And that's where any investment would go at this point. Is to grow relationships with some of these non-alcoholic vendors, and create more partnerships there, create a bit more of a marketing campaign around Lifted, because a big education process is going to have to take place. And the current awareness around Kava, I'll also mention Kratom, because Kava and Kratom seem to happen in a lot of the same conversations that, I'm trying to do that differently. So the people who are aware of Kava and Kratom have a different experience with it, I think, a lot of the times. So these are both very powerful plants. Kava can really help with anxiety and pain that you carry in your body. It can really help with getting out of your shell, right? Like it really does do a lot of the similar things that I guess alcohol would without the downside. So with that being said, like some places use Kava as a means to go after a community that might be, say, suffer from alcohol addiction, right? And then they just load up with these really strong concentrated Kava drinks with the intention of just replacing the alcohol addiction with Kava addiction. I wouldn't say Kava is addictive, but there's a way to kind of do it in more of a healthy, intentional way, I guess, if that makes any sense. That's what I'm trying to create. Same thing with Kratom. So Kratom, if you're not familiar, Kratom is a plant related to the coffee plant. It is essentially like a green leaf. There's a couple different strains of it, but it interacts with your opiate receptors. So as we know, opiates can be very sedative and can essentially ruin a lot of lives. Kratom has, on the positive side, been used to get a lot of people off of opiates, to get people off of their pain meds and whatnot, and abusing those. But Kratom can also be abused. So high dosages of Kratom is going to sedate the shit out of you. And where small doses might give you a little bit of energy or ease anxiety and ease stress. So my intention with Kava and Kratom are to use them in the traditional way at the appropriate dosages so that you are reaping the benefits without risking any of the downside, if that makes sense. So I do offer Kratom at Lifted as well as another add-in to any of the drinks, but we measure it out at 2 grams. So it's a very small dose that's just going to take the edge off a little bit. And where some other places on, say, the East Coast that Kava and Kratom are well known in are serving very strong Kratom drinks, or even head shops. If you go into a head shop, you might see Kratom offered here or something like that. It's like 20 grams in like a little bit of a shot, and it can be very, very harmful for people with addictive personalities, right? So anyways, that's a little bit about Lifted Botanical Bar, and the big changes that are happening, right? So there's that. Wrapped all that up. And now for the Barcode Collective podcast. I guess the vision for this right now is just to get back to a sense of consistency here. It really has been hard to be creative over the past couple of years, but I personally really do enjoy having conversations and interviewing people. No journalist, don't get it twisted, but I really do like having conversations and getting to the core of people, because I have a real interest in human nature and trying to understand why we do the things that we do and operate the way that we do, because ultimately, it's with that understanding that we can kind of change our behavior and change the way that we act and the way that we respond. So, I'm very interested in that. So more conversations are going to be coming to the Barcode. I think as a strategy, because, at the end of the day, this is a great way to get people to get to know me better, get to know the brands a little bit better. And what I want to do is focus a little bit more locally on the interviews. So local to Pasadena, local to our community a little bit more. So I guess more relevant to what's happening. So the example, I guess, last episode had Hone, who's a ceremonial matcha on. The founders of Hone were on. And although they're not necessarily local to Pasadena, we offered their matcha at Lifted and the Fit Bar Superfood Cafe. So being able to share more information behind the scenes of that brand that our customers are consuming, I think that's important. And knowing that I'm going to be honing in and focusing in Pasadena on both Spacebar Wellness and Lifted Botanical Bar, I really want to get to know my community better. I've been there for 2 years. I'm not from Pasadena. I've been there as long as we've been opened. Literally not really leaving that block. I've done my best to try to do my outreach and bring in people and connect with people, but I've been spread really thin and I haven't been able to really connect and be a part of the community the way that I really want to be. So I'm going to be reaching out to local trainers, coaches, people doing things that are in alignment with the Barcode and that foundation of having courage to optimize and develop your essence is still what we operate on and is still going to be what I am trying to get after in all of these conversations. Trying to have conversations around this idea that there's multiple pillars. There's things that we need to pursue if we want to have a life that essentially has it all, right? Like we can't just pursue finances. We can't just pursue the best body. We need to bring multiple value systems. I have mine. You probably have yours. But we need to bring them all into the conversation in order to find contentment and happiness. And, that's going to look a little different for all of us, but I want to be able to have conversations with people that are aware of that and to hear how they are tackling those challenges and, some of the struggles that they feel that they're going through when they have to focus more on their business and, what's getting left to the wayside and how they feel about that. And, yeah, that's what I want to do with the Barcode Collective podcast. So going to be strapping a little bit more into that. So excited for it. I know this episode was, whenever I do these episodes, I'm not, if you know me, I'm not much of a planner. I'm not scripting shit out. I'm not even typing things out and giving myself a framework. I just get on the friggin' mic and I talk. So for me, sometimes as I look back over the past whatever minutes I've been talking, it feels like a freaking ramble. So I hope that this does not come across as a ramble. I think that's always been one of my strengths is just not really giving a fuck and just being real and just coming on here and chopping it up. But I do recognize the need for a little bit more structure. And I hope that that's me just saying, I'd get it on here, not giving a fuck. I can see how that could be a bit of an excuse not to sit down and get organized, which is a personal goal of mine in 2022, get a little bit more structured, start operating off of a bit of a calendar versus just putting out fires and doing what feels good in the moment. That was, I think, a result of being stretched so thin that I had to just kind of run all around and just, yeah. But none of that. We're solving those problems. But anyways, I'm going to leave you guys with that before these dogs start wilding out and making all these noises. So, all right, guys, I appreciate you guys sticking around. we've been at the Barcode Collective podcast here for a couple of years now. I know it's been big gaps in between it, but I look forward to hopping in more consistently, engaging more a little bit with Q&As, and being here as whatever support that I could be for you guys, whether that's just somebody to talk to, coaching, nutrition, lifestyle, getting you set up with one of our certified personal trainers and helping write a program. Can do all that. So for more specifics on those offerings, feel free to DM me, or just stay tuned and just follow along. I'll be dropping a lot more breathwork stuff personally, because that is also where I'm at in regards to probably the most impactful thing that a lot of people could be implementing and aren't. So that's kind of going to be coming out with some different just breathing protocols that you can follow on the daily. Some episodes on like what breath actually is and why we should be thinking about it. So keep an eye on some of that. And until next time, I am out of here.